with coverage you can count on. This is News 2 Today.
We are now preparing shelters to receive not only South Carolinians, but also our friends from Florida and Georgia, as they should be needed.
As Hurricane Irma begins to batter Florida, Governor Henry McMaster says South Carolina will welcome all evacuees in need of shelter.
And a live look in Florida. This is Fort Lauderdale by the sea. You can see the winds are whipping, the waves crashing. This is just the beginning of what could be one of the most disastrous storms Florida has seen in decades.
Good Sunday morning, everyone. Thank you so much for starting your day with us. Today is September 10th. I am Octavia Mitchell.
And I'm Brad Franco. Glad you're here. Hurricane Irma continuing to move across the western Florida Keys right now.
We have team coverage as we track Hurricane Irma. But first, let's start with the Lowcountry's morning meteorologist, Josh Mathers. What's the latest on Hurricane Irma?
Good morning, Octavia. Good morning, Brad. Right now on the satellite, we are continuing to watch a strong storm as we head through the morning hours. And this is going to be headed up to the north and west, and we'll track based off of what I can see this morning just to the west of the Florida Peninsula. I'm not sure this goes into the Florida Peninsula. If it does, it would be somewhere around Tampa, right there where that sticks out just a little bit, or most likely up into the Big Bend area in the Florida Panhandle. But the eye is crossing the Keys right now, and the live radar is still active on Key West, showing that eye wall is now to the north of Key West, and it looks like we are either having landfall right now or it will be declared officially within the next few minutes. The center has to cross some part of the coastline, and it looks like most likely that's occurring as we speak. Marathon just getting beaten this morning by heavy rain and wind. Some of the strongest winds there, and it looks like a pressure record will be set in Key West. It will break the old low pressure of 948 set back in the 1950s, if I'm not mistaken, I think is what that was. Pressure right now is at 929 millibars as the storm is crossing the Keys, moving to the northwest at 8 miles per hour. Max winds are at 130. This will pivot up the Florida coast and then go right into the Florida Big Bend as a hurricane later tomorrow. This is going to bring widespread storm surge flooding and widespread wind damage throughout the entire Florida Peninsula, from the Keys all the way up into the central and eastern parts there of the Florida Panhandle into southern Georgia. And then as you look into South Carolina, we're even going to see impacts here as well. We're already seeing some of those this morning. Already some showers spiraling in off the Atlantic in some spots. These are fairly light and fairly weak, but we're already getting reports of wind gusts over 25 miles per hour here across parts of the area. So it's not going to take much to bring down some of these stronger winds a little bit later today. High tide coming up today at 11:28. That is forecast to reach 8.19 feet, which is above major flood stage at Charleston Harbor. The next one this evening is 8.64 feet. That one's at 11:55, so we're going to have two major flooding cycles here today into tonight. And the one we're watching is tomorrow at 12:23. That is forecast 11.22 feet. For perspective, Hurricane Matthew's peak in Charleston Harbor was 9.28 and Hugo was 12.52. That's why we have these warnings in place. A high impact from surge and tidal flooding, high wind in the moderate category, high impact from flooding rain. We put these two together and we've got a big problem tomorrow. Moderate impacts from tornadoes and high impacts from beach erosion. Hurricane watch in place from Edisto Beach Point south, and a tropical storm warning in place there as well. Tropical storm warning up for the rest of us except for Williamsburg and Georgetown counties. A storm surge warning in place for the coast of Charleston County, tidal Berkeley County, and tidal Colleton County. That's because of that near record high tide coming in. If that forecast verifies at 11.22 feet, that would be the second highest tide ever recorded in Charleston Harbor. Flash flood watch in place as well for the entire low country. Let's plan your day. We're going to cruise into the low to mid 70s as we head into the afternoon hours with occasional squalls moving through. Today will be the calmer day between today and tomorrow. Even though we're still in a weather alert mode today, guys, we will be back with a look ahead at what you can expect, plus your hour-by-hour forecast model as we track the possibility of strong to severe thunderstorms tomorrow.
Thank you, Josh. 4 minutes after the hour right now, despite days of warnings, many flood-prone buildings around Charleston remain vulnerable.
Some have the shutters up and sandbags out. Others appear completely exposed. Storm Team 2 meteorologist Chrissy Kohler is live for us at the Battery to tell us about the potential storm surge threat. Chrissy?
Yeah, good morning, guys. It's a mix of boarded up windows here on the Battery, some that have the boarded up windows and others that don't. Of course, they do have the Battery here to protect them from a little bit of flooding. But as we look out into the Charleston Harbor, what Josh was just talking about, we're headed towards high tide right now. You can see the wind really starting to whip up the waves here in the harbor. And I expect that as you go further out towards the coast, the barrier islands, and out towards the actual Atlantic Ocean, you're likely going to see some even rougher conditions along our waterways here. So one of the big things we're concerned about with the Irma moving through the area is the potential for storm surge here in the low country. A storm surge warning up all along the coastline from the Georgia border up to the border of Charleston County and Georgetown County. Taking a look at some of the forecasts here down towards Edisto Beach, they're expecting to see upwards of 3 feet of storm surge. Big part of the reason that evacuation was ordered. As you move into lower Charleston County, you're going to see a forecast of upwards of 3 feet as well. The official forecast from the National Weather Service is 4 to 6 feet of inundation, and that is water above the ground level. Now, just to put a little perspective on that forecast, there's a 10% chance that inundation could be higher than that 4 to 6 feet, but it is a worst case scenario type forecast. So it gives you an idea of what you should be planning for. So if you're in a flood-prone area or you're in an area that typically sees some issues, that water getting pretty close during the typical high tide, higher than normal high tide cycle, you should be preparing your home or your business to be able to handle that inundation. We are continuing to monitor, of course, the situation here. Like I said, we're about 2.5 hours still from high tide in the Charleston Harbor, and those waters continuing to rise. Brad, Octavia.
Thank you, Chrissy. Governor Henry McMaster declared a mandatory evacuation for Edisto Beach Friday.
Yeah, they're also under a hurricane watch right now. News 2's Macy McLeod is live for us there on Edisto Beach with what people are expecting there. Macy?
Good morning, guys. If you take a look over my shoulder here, you can see that there is a roadblock in place and cars are only leaving Edisto Beach. No cars are allowed onto the beach this morning. And that is because that evacuation order is in place. They're saying that is a mandatory evacuation, and that is due to the storm surge concerns. Now remember, just because South Carolina does not fall in the direct path of this storm, it does not mean the impacts from Irma will spare the low country. Officials tell me they expect the storm surge from Hurricane Irma to be more severe than during Hurricane Matthew last year. Yesterday, law enforcement officers went door to door, making sure everyone knew about the mandatory evacuation and warning them if they refuse to leave, they are doing so at their own risk.
The power will most likely be out. The water will most likely be out. There will be no emergency services. If they call 911, nobody's coming. We can't put our responders in danger, because when this storm's over, we've got to get them back and get them back to work so we can get the town open and running again.
And if the reason you're not leaving is because you're concerned you have nowhere to go, there is a shelter open at Colleton County Middle School in Walterboro. Reporting live on Edisto Beach, Macy McLeod, News 2.
All right, here's a look at some of the things we know as of right now. 34 FEMA staff members ready to help here in South Carolina. More on standby in Atlanta. The South Carolina Department of Health and Environmental Control, DHEC, they're in charge of dams in our state, and they're going to be checking 8 of them. And when the heavy rains begin, they're going to closely monitor all of those dams.
The South Carolina National Guard is fully staffed to handle emergencies, and there are another 6,000 troops who could be called in to help. Florida Governor Rick Scott has asked for assistance from South Carolina National Guard.
Independent gas stations may see some irregularity when it comes to getting the gas trucks in there to refill the tanks, but the large branded gas stations aren't going to experience gas shortages. They have contracts with major oil companies. If you have any questions about Irma and the state's response or any of the precautions you need to be taking still, here's the South Carolina Public Hotline for Hurricane Irma info. It's 866-246-0133. Again, 866-246-0133. You can also get that number, in case you didn't jot it down just now. It's at count-on2.com.
And don't forget to download a copy of the Storm Team 2 Hurricane Guide. It has everything you need to know, including what to buy to prepare yourself, your family, and pets, and your home. Just head to our website, count-on2.com, and click on Hurricane Central under the Weather tab.
News 2 Today is just getting started.
The Red Cross is here to tell us how you can help during this tough time. Cuthbert Langley will be joining us again this hour with details.
And his son was caught up in Hurricane Irma. Now one father in North Carolina is on a mission to find and rescue his son. That story is coming up.